Although Pope Leo XIV began his pontificate with a calm and deliberate tone, behind the scenes, profound changes are already unfolding. His early days were marked by quiet reflection, solemn public liturgies, and a message centered on Christ, unity and love. But now the season of action has begun. Away from the spotlight, deeper movements are taking shape, especially within the inner life of the Church. One of the earliest signs came not with fanfare, but with a single consequential appointment. Pope Leo has named Sister Tidiana Maletti, former Superior General of the Franciscan Sisters of the Poor, as Secretary of the Dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. This is no symbolic role. It is a governing office, granting her real administrative authority within the Roman Curia. The decision gives flesh to the teachings of Predicate Evangelium, which affirmed that governance in the Church is not limited to the ordained. This appointment is both a theological and institutional milestone, making visible a new model of ecclesial leadership. For many observers, this move reflects the ongoing influence of Pope Francis, who opened doors to broader participation in church governance. Pope Leo appears to be continuing along that path, at least for now. The direction this path ultimately takes remains uncertain, and much depends on what follows. But already this first gesture has sent a clear signal. This pontificate is not standing still. Quietly but undeniably, change is underway. Yet while appointments within the Curia shape the Church's future, the most emotionally charged and divisive issue now confronting Catholics lies elsewhere: the fate of the traditional Latin Mass. Though Pope Leo has issued no public statements on the matter, decisions at the diocesan level are steadily reshaping the liturgical landscape. Across the globe, especially in the United States, parishes that once celebrated the ancient Roman rite are seeing dramatic reductions. These shifts reflect the ongoing implementation of Traditionis Custodes, the directive from the previous pontificate that sharply limited the celebration of the traditional Mass. Despite the absence of new instructions from Pope Leo himself, the prevailing climate suggests that the trajectory has not changed and may even be accelerating. Two recent cases have brought the issue into sharp focus: the closure of St. Joseph Parish in Hammond, Indiana, and the reduction of the traditional Latin Mass in the Diocese of Charlotte, North Carolina. Both stories reveal a deeper pattern. St. Joseph Parish, a historic church known for its stunning architecture and vibrant liturgical life, had become a spiritual home for many Catholics drawn to the traditional rite. Celebrated by the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, the Latin Mass infused the parish with a strong identity and growing community. But as time passed, criticism, both internal and external, began to mount. Voices uncomfortable with the older liturgy grew louder. Media attention increased. The Mass was first restricted, then relocated, and ultimately removed. Without the Latin Mass, the parish began to dwindle. Official statements cite declining attendance, but many argue that removing the very thing that had given the parish life is what triggered its decline. Now, St. Joseph is on the path to closure. Charlotte tells a similar story. Once home to over 20 parishes offering the traditional Latin Mass, the diocese now has only one chapel permitted to celebrate it, just twice a month, and only on holy days. It is not a parish nor centrally located. The change followed the expiration of temporary Vatican permissions. Local bishops, acting within their authority, began to limit or eliminate the traditional liturgy. Some see this as a step toward unity. Others view it as a slow and systematic dismantling of a living tradition. Which brings us to the critical question: what will Pope Leo XIV do? So far, his silence on the matter has prompted debate. Some interpret it as a strategic pause, avoiding early controversy. Others see it as quiet assent to the direction already set by Traditionis Custodes. Meanwhile, diocesan bishops continue to act, interpreting the lack of new guidance as confirmation of the current restrictive stance. Still, there are hints of another approach. Cardinal William Goh, Archbishop of Singapore, recently called for balance. While he does not personally celebrate the traditional Mass, he urged that those drawn to it, especially young devout Catholics, should not be marginalized, so long as they accept the teachings of Vatican II. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, former head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, went further. He called on Pope Leo to restore full access to the traditional Latin Mass, insisting that we absolutely cannot condemn or prohibit the legitimate form of the Latin liturgy. He believes that Pope Leo's temperament, calm, thoughtful, unhurried, could help the Church find a path toward genuine unity. The moment of decision is drawing near. Whether Pope Leo chooses to reaffirm the restrictions or chart a new course, his response must be clear. His choice will shape the Church for years to come. Meanwhile, faithful Catholics at the parish level are already living the consequences. Their communities are being moved, reduced, or dissolved. Masses are cancelled. Traditions that shape generations are slipping away. And yet the response from most has not been protest or rebellion. In many places it has been prayer and patience. These are not agitators. They are believers. They ask for no privilege, only permission. They simply want to worship in the way that has formed them, spiritually and sacramentally. This is not just about Latin or incense. For many, the traditional Mass is about sacredness, mystery, and continuity. It is a window into the transcendent, a connection to something larger than themselves. It is not disunity they seek to promote, but unity built on respect, not uniformity imposed by decree. Pope Leo XIV's silence may soon end. When it does, his words and his decisions will echo far beyond the walls of the Vatican. Because for thousands of Catholics, this is not just a policy matter. It is their spiritual home, and it is disappearing. They wait in chapels tucked away on the outskirts of diocesan maps. They wait in basements, in borrowed sanctuaries, in repurposed school halls, anywhere the old rite is still permitted to live. They wait in silence, in prayer, and in hope that the Church they love will still make room for the form of worship that shaped centuries of Catholic life. These Catholics are not relics of the past. They are young families with children learning the Latin responses by heart. They are converts who found in the traditional Mass a spiritual beauty that first drew them to the faith. They are older, parishioners who see in the chants, the incense and the reverent silence, a reminder of a sacred rhythm that once filled every Catholic church in the world. What they seek is not control but continuity, not nostalgia but reverence, not protest but a promise that the Church still holds space for what is ancient and holy. But the tension is growing. Some bishops argue that the traditional Mass fosters division, that it is used as a banner for resistance against the reforms of the Second Vatican Council. Others point out that most of its adherents are not rebels, but ordinary Catholics who attend daily Mass, pray the Rosary, and serve their communities. To them, Traditionis Custodes and its aftermath feel less like a call to unity and more like exile. This is the pastoral challenge now facing Pope Leo XIV. How does the Church affirm its liturgical reforms while also caring for those who remain deeply attached to the older rite? How does it ensure unity without extinguishing diversity? How does it prevent schism, not by force but by listening? For many observers, the answer lies in dialogue, not decrees. In a Church that calls itself Catholic, universal, there should be space for legitimate liturgical variety, so long as the heart remains faithful to Christ and to the Church's magisterium. Pope Benedict XVI once wrote that what was sacred for previous generations cannot suddenly be considered harmful. That principle now hangs in the balance. Pope Leo XIV must decide whether to uphold that vision or let it quietly slip away. In the coming months, eyes will turn to Rome. Each decision, each appointment, each word or silence will be weighed. A motu proprio could change everything. A papal interview could offer clarity. A gesture of openness could ease years of tension, or continued silence could deepen the divide. For now, the Latin Mass continues, dimmed but not extinguished. It endures not because of institutional support, but because of the quiet tenacity of those who love it. Like a candle in a dark room, it persists, flickering, fragile, but unrelenting. What remains is a question that has not yet been answered, not by statements or policies, but by the lived reality of millions of Catholics. Can there be true unity in the Church if it comes at the cost of silence, mystery, and memory? This is the question Pope Leo XIV must confront.